Because this was our first project together with everybody, my biggest fear was not knowing the skill level that we had available to us. There's a lot of times when you get into these projects and you're working with a crew of people, and they have a tendency to tell you, yeah, I can do this, or no, I can't do this. And when you're on a shoestring budget like we were, everybody has a very significant role. So when one person doesn't meet their requirements, it has a tendency to drop, and we didn't have any backup plans. So my biggest fear going into this was not knowing if they could complete. And surprisingly, every single person that was there, I gave us 150%.
Biggest challenge in making this film is taking several camera guys that have never worked with much of the equipment that we had on set. There was different camera models. There's equipment that a lot of major productions don't really have access to. It's very unique equipment, and getting people that have never used that equipment before together and have them operated efficiently and get, in a way that we get the shots that we need was a real challenge. And all of them were up to the task, and it was surprising how well they adapted to the challenges that we put in front of them.
Although I'd done some cinematography before, never on this level. So learning cranes and Steadicams, and that was quite a challenge at first. But and then just the production schedule and how much we crammed in 2 days was pretty cool. So it was a challenge, but it turned out to be a very, very rewarding experience.
The biggest challenge was for making this film was the Steadicam and the wind. So it was me versus the wind. And the rig wasn't too bad, but it was the fact that the camera kept swaying left and right, no matter how hard I tried. And it's already difficult enough holding the Steadicam when there's no wind. So walking forward, you have a lateral wind, nasty.
My biggest challenge was all of the rewrites and redos that we had to do. Again, when you're working with a zero budget like we were, sometimes you'll get bodies in there that can do stuff, personal things come up, and you'll lose a crew member or talent, and you have to be able to compensate for that. And then those compensations were many in this particular project. For one of the one of the problems that we ran into is 50, 60 mile an hour winds. We had everything that we needed to shoot outdoors, and you can't shoot in 50 mile an hour wind. So we had to completely rewrite the whole back end of the story to put it indoors.
Well, working with those kind of professionals and the resources that we had was absolutely awesome. I mean, I had been wanting to get involved with people who were serious and who were really wanting to make good films for a long time. And so, as many good ideas as you have in your head, or even shots or a look or a feel, it just doesn't come together without the right people.
My most challenging scene in Flinch, I didn't do any acting, but I would say they gave me the Steadicam again, and I had to chase the talent through, it seemed like live wires, but it wasn't really live wires, so that was a little scary. There are things on the floor that I was clipping with my foot and so on and so forth, and they were removed later, but during that scene, trying to avoid just destroying the equipment.
It was actually the photo shoot for the DVD. It was cold in the tunnel and dripping water, and just having to hold a gun in one spot for such a long time for the gentleman to take the pictures was a little bit rough.
Most challenging scene, most any scene where we had to be technical with the guns. We have Officer Ben, who's been helping us get the technical aspect of holding the gun, walking with the gun, where our eyes would be. That's been the most challenging. So just about every other scene has been challenging in that way.
Pop, 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 pop,
Okay.
pop. Yeah, that was nice. Right.
More like that.
Yeah. You can even try to squeeze your hands together too. When you do it, do with your hand, kind of a convulsive movement. It's like that. Yeah, double tap. Got the rhythm, yeah. Boom, boom. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
It was invaluable, just the knowledge and the expertise that he brought to make the actions, just with such a rookie like myself, to be able to try and halfway pull it off was blessing to have him on the set.
He had a good sense of humor, dry sense of humor, but he has some really great techniques that I learned from him, and it was really humbling and really awesome at the same time that he coordinated with my techniques as well.
Well, in this case, it was pretty important because they didn't have any exposure to that prior to this time. So they were kind of running around with the Charlie's Angels pose with weapons, and they didn't know how to act, holding. They needed to be taught how to act naturally in front of the camera. With some modern training methods thrown in because it's to be a modern film.
Definitely was capable, and I think I mentioned Chris a few times. I'd hate to be on the other side of that hill that he was approaching. You know, in one of the scenes where Shelley's she's cresting a hill, looking down on the compound, and just to watch her coming and watch Ben working with her as she crested the hill. I just thought, I'm sure glad I'm on the right side of the law here. He was professional, did his job very well, and helped Shelley. And Jay didn't really need much coaching, but Shelley she came through it perfect, and Ben was good, really good with the actors.
Best student is definitely going to be the female officer. She's going to be the best student. She had to take a lot of direction, and she didn't have any form or idea how to do this stuff. She had absolutely no form or training whatsoever.
Type in SWAT in Wikipedia. I'm pretty sure that his image would come up.
I worked with Jay a little bit, and he did very well. He basically got rid of the chicken wing, which was you see in every single movie. The Matrix is one excellent example where you'll see a chicken wing where Neo was he was attacking a compound, and everyone had that arm out, had that right arm out while they were shooting the gun. That's one thing that you don't ever want to have real world. He kept it down, and that's one thing I was looking for. And Officer Ben corresponded with making sure that he did everything right in regards to opening and clearing rooms.
Ben is just so knowledgeable. Of course, I mean, he's trained in this area. I must have learned a dozen things from him. I stayed close, I paid attention. What a great guy to have on set.
My favorite scene, it'd have to be the blood splattering on the wall in the boiler room. That whole effect, the way that worked, charging up that mortar and sending it off and exploding all that guy, that was it. That was cool.
When using the blood rigging, like I used, it was an air mortar system, basically a charged canister filled with a air charge and then a valve and some blood and matter in it to splatter out. The biggest challenge is just getting everything timed right with the actor, because they don't trigger it. I trigger it separately from the actor, so it's a timing thing and getting the angles right so that I'm not off camera, not being seen, the device is not being seen.
Favorite scene so far was probably that boiler room. I'm really enjoying the boiler room a lot. Like I said, the talent is inside there, and the gore cannon was very cool. The timing was really great on the shot, receiving the gore cannon.
I think my favorite scene would definitely have to be the gunfight. The last scene we shot on Sunday, we completely changed everything, but I think it'll work. The most challenging scene was most likely the same scene where we completely changed everything due to the wind and the time that we had. We had to basically improvise, so I think that was pretty challenging for me.
I think the most difficult scene that I had was of course, the chair scene, kicking the chair over and just making it look like my head bounced off the ground. There was a couple times there where I was trying to make it look real, and I knocked my head off the ground pretty good. I think the handcuffs were getting a little much after a while. After a few takes, they were a little tight. And falling over in the chair and trying to keep straight, and twisting my hands, it's all fun.
Well, as we all know, it was one of the windiest weekends of the year. And as a sound guy, just starting out, that's one of the biggest challenges you're ever going to come in face-to-face contact with. And so, get it out of the way, just learn. I know what kind of gear I need to get now to, dampen the wind issue. So it's definitely one of the bigger issues. On top of that, we were in echoey warehouses, which don't play well with boom mics either, or any type of mics. So I've learned the challenges ahead and what I gotta prepare for in the future.
The wind was so horrible that first day of shooting. when I'm doing the actors on outside scenes, I like to do the makeup outside. So it was a constant battle to keep the actors warm, get the makeup put on the face, keep my hair from blowing out of my face. I mean, there were some pictures that I saw where I had my big old coat on, my stupid hat on. I looked like a dork, you know, and I was thinking to myself, why were you wearing that? But I was thinking it was so cold and it was so windy out there. I was past the point of caring. I just had to get the makeup done and I had to get the actors ready, so. But that, I mean, I had to laugh when I look at a lot of those pictures because the wind's blowing everywhere with a lot of us, and any of us that had longer hair. I mean, it was really hard to work.
My most challenging scene was the shootout scene, which was supposed to take place on Sunday afternoon. And the reason is because we had 50, 60 mile an hour wind, which we couldn't shoot outdoors. The whole scene was written, scripted, the shot list was all done for outdoors. Talent was picked for outdoors, locations, everything. So for us to sit down at lunchtime and completely redo that whole thing made that particular scene a huge challenge, because we had to bring it indoors. We had to find a location, we had to get access to the location, we had to get indoors, we had to scope it out. And again, it goes back to the team. We had crew members on the team that were incredibly forward thinking and took charge of what they needed to do, go out, pick the spot, pick the locations, grab the lights, and we nailed it.
So we got Philip just got shot like 5 times, so he's having a much worse day than the director and the camera department. If you look over there and you see we got a separate makeup guy, all the audio's checking it out. We got SWAT.
Let's go ahead and
making sure the bullets are in a good location.
We don't want it to drip too long.
All I can tell you right now is it's on.
Probably my most favorite scene was when I was doing the gunshot wounds on Matt's chest. I loved doing that. That was so cool.
I think probably the most challenging scene, I guess, would have been the like the gunshot scene where I have been shot a few times, and I was lying on the floor. I think it was probably the most difficult just because it was just me, and I was surrounded by everybody on set, so it was a little nerve-wracking. You know, I had to be, you know, still sinister and all that, but you know, dying, and I was just trying to think of all the things to like make the scene really good. But still not be freaked out by everybody just standing above me, laying on the ground, just watching me.
I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it.
It looks
just
cool.
Stay on this road, and then, you know, while he's turning around, just go back and forth on this road.
So when we take off, it'll have to be like that. Because
Okay.
if you have it like this, when it takes off, when the blades spin up, it starts oscillating, and then it competes with the gyro. So it's like, and so this way, you'll take off like that, and then you'll completely. You don't look at the helicopter. Don't let it distract you. And you're freaking under the hood over there, and you're just watching the image. And the goal is to keep it center mass. We're not trying to do anything creative with the angles. It's just like bam.
No
we want
1/3 anything.
center
We're
mass
just trying to center
of the truck wherever we're at. Just side by side, helicopter's looking to the right. We're going straight, but the camera's looking to the right, and just side by side on the truck.
Okay.
And same principle. And if you get lost, I mean, it's like your reference point's right there. You can see a skid.
Oh,
kind of turn back. Okay, that's the back of the helicopter. You kind of see what it's doing. And this thing moves fast. And I'll plug the battery in, and we'll see how fast it moves and shit. Because it's real sensitive, and if you flick the controls, I mean, it'll go with the oscillation of the stick. So it's nice, smooth movements, and we'll practice doing that. It won't take that long.
it's projects like these that that are wonderful to get your feet wet, because I was not intimidated by people who were part of Screen Actors Guild, or the camera guy who brought multiple $1,000s worth of equipment to the scene. To see that was inspiring, but it wasn't scary. And then to know that we were all in it together, it was a project that made me want to do more film, and it's those kind of projects that you want to be a part of. The vibe should always be to work and to enjoy what you're doing, and I think that this was a great example of what that can be. So I was really pleased that this was my project that I started out on, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
I'm learning something every time I get together with these guys. It's great. I went to school for 4 or 5 years to learn about this stuff, but I think I'm learning more on the field than I've ever learned in the classroom. I'm learning everything. I'm learning how to deal with, issues that arise, and not to freak out, and just realize we're all people and we all need to work together to make a solid product. So that's what we did.
The hardest thing I had to learn, I think pulling focus and making sure everything was perfectly in focus, and yeah, I think that's pretty much really the hardest thing for me, was just making sure everything was perfectly in focus. Shooting out at Pikes Peak International Raceway was definitely an awesome experience. Like I said, I've never done anything like this before. I felt like I was really on a Hollywood project, working on the whole thing.
They're so generous to give us this establishment right here. This location is just fabulous. That's a key thing with production, is finding a great location where you have so many opportunities. There was at one point we had difficulty with some of the weather, and we were able to alter the scene a little bit because of the available space that's here, and we made it work. I tell you what, there are a tremendous amount of professionals and highly motivated people in Colorado, and I was just fortunate enough to find that group, and for everybody to stick together through the entire process is by far the most important thing. There are so many independent film groups out there that are unable to finish their products and proceed with the project and get it out to the festivals. Chris Scaraglino is a tremendous leader, and he keeps everybody motivated. They know he's not playing around, and I'm thankful to find this group. I think we have a core group of people right now who can proceed and make commercials and movies, get funding, no problem. Investors know how long it takes to put a movie together, or even a short film like this. They understand what it takes. And when they see that people are serious, are willing to donate their time, imagine what they can do with little funding.
My favorite scene wasn't actually in the movie. It was watching all the tumbleweeds go across the racetrack and build up into this giant mass on this fence. And I couldn't help thinking of the symbolism of that. We were all, to me, each one of us was a different tumbleweed. The wind was our collective momentum. And Chris and Doug, they were the fence, bringing us all together, and we formed this giant tumbleweed monster. And that's kind of what I think of our crew right now. It's a giant tumbleweed monster ready to take on whatever we want to take on. So here we go.
We're all one big tumbleweed monster.